think about marketing practice, I think of marketing as a profession. We're not like science, we're more like engineering. So we're an applied profession where our job is to try and understand and create value for consumers and capture the value. And I see that as having three parts. I see those people who are methodologically driven. In other words, they've got a spanner that they want to undo nuts with. So someone like Jordan Louvier, he's got his discrete choice models and he's got this spanner. He's running around the world trying to find nuts that he can unlock with this spanner. And then I see people who are phenomenologically driven. So these are people who say, there's something interesting happening out in the world. These people study nuts and then they need a spanner which they can unlock those nuts. So people like Kahneman and Tversky said, you know, we notice that people have got these heuristics and biases. Here's a phenomenon we've seen in the marketplace. What's a methodology or a spanner we can use to unlock those nuts? And then there are those people who are managerially driven who say, I want to change car tyres. And if I want to change car tyres, I better have a good set of spanners. And I better understand the nature of nuts. And it seems to me that India would be a fantastic place to think of people who are good at using spanners and understanding nuts to add value to managers in the workplace. I mean, you've got these really strong engineering skills, you've got an incredibly rich set of phenomena happening in these marketplaces, and I think India's a very intuitive, practical country. If you look at the finalists in the Marketing Science Practice Prize, you'll see that a lot of them have been Indians. If you look at the winners in the Practice Prize, you'll see a lot of them have been winners. You see people like VK, who's won it, a native Indian. You see people like PK Kannan, who's won it, a native Indian. You see people like Prabit Sinha with Andy Zoltness, who won it. And so it does seem to me that as you search for competitive advantage as scholars, that one source of competitive advantage that I think India is very well placed to achieve is by practice. And I want to talk about two papers, if I could, today. One paper is appearing in the International Journal of Research in Marketing in the second issue with Ujjwal Kayanda and Stefan Stremic. It's going to have a commentary by Russ Weiner and by Don Lehman in it, talking about what I might call practice, the practice of marketing. And then I have a paper last year in 2013 with Gary Lillian and Venki Shankar, which you could call best practice. So I want to firstly talk about this paper, which is just about to appear, from academic research to marketing practice, about what's happening out there in the industry. What are we doing as academics, and is it influencing what managers do at all? And then second, so that's practice. But then the best practice part is the marketing science competition, practice competition that VK was talking about. That's going to be judged in March. Interestingly enough, VK is a finalist in that competition this year. Interestingly enough, I'm a finalist in that competition this year. And so the gloves are off a little bit in that respect. So what I want to do is I want to talk about this paper with Ujjwal Kayanda and Stefan Stremic, which is coming out in IJRM, talking about, do what we do as managers, as academics, influence what managers are doing. And then I want to talk about some generalisations about the prizes, the finalists in the Marketing Science Practice Prize, and what we can learn from studying those, which appeared last year in Marketing Science. So in terms of trying to understand what marketing science articles affect what management practice, we really need at least one intermediate step, which is that a lot of marketing science articles aren't used by managers, but they are used by people like, for example, AC Nielsen. They're used by companies like the Charles River Associates, Accenture, etc. So there are a whole host of tools that these articles get turned into, and those tools do influence perhaps what managers do. So we try to look at what we call the marketing science value chain and try and calibrate that. What are the articles that have most influenced practice? Have they done it directly, or have they done it by being turned into tools like choice-based conjoint analysis, segmentation models, etc. Who should inform that? Well, we decided we'd ask marketing science academics, editorial board members of management science, marketing science, JM, JMR, about the articles and the tools. We decided we'd ask these consultants about the articles, the tools they influence in practice, and we decided we'd ask marketing managers about the tools and the managers. And this was a pretty comprehensive set of surveys. We did 9 surveys altogether. In the main survey we talked to 94 academics, over 70% of the editorial board members of JMR, Marketing Science and Management Science. We talked to about 34 marketing science intermediaries and about 100 managers. So it's a very, very comprehensive study of what are the important articles in our profession, what are the important tools that they've influenced, and how much has that influenced management practice. I just quickly want to share some of the results. Some of the, looking at these different stimuli as measured by different populations of people. So let me not spend any time too much talking about who we looked at. Let me go straight to the articles. We started off with a big pool of academic articles that had had some practice, and we looked at on this group of tools, we looked at, of the articles that have had some kind of practice on what managers do, as measured by marketing science intermediaries or consultants, how much practice has they had academically as measured by citations. And there's a correlation, but the R squared is 0.03, so it's a very weak correlation. Not particularly interesting, and it's a great example of when you've got data like these, maybe you're looking at it in the wrong way. Instead of trying to understand the relationship between academic practice and marketing and practice in the marketplace, let's have a look at, divide this into 4 quadrants, and we can say, well, we can have these articles that are highly influential on practice and also highly influential on academics. We can have these articles, and we call those paradigm shifters. We can have those that are highly influenced on practice, but academics think very little of. We could call those practice drivers. We could have people, articles that are very influenced on academics, but haven't done much for industry. We could call those knowledge drivers, and then we better not call these ones bad because they're still in the top 100, so we can call these just important papers. That's marketing. And so we looked at what these important papers were. As you can imagine, it gets pretty controversial because the first thing that someone does is they see their names on the list. And so it's going to come as no surprise to you that someone like Klaus Fornell thinks this is a very good piece of research, because Klaus kind of appears there, and Klaus kind of appears there, and Klaus kind of appears there. So Klaus likes this work. There are some people who hate it. In fact, basically the people whose name's not on this list. But we looked at which of the important articles measured by practice. Then we looked at the tools that these articles might have influenced. So we looked at segmentation tools as measured by intermediaries, managers and academics, and said how important are these tools. And you can see sometimes it varies a little bit. Intermediaries really like choice-based modelling and are finding out very, very important. Not so much managers and even not so much academics. Managerial scores are a lot lower, that managers think that our tools are less useful than either intermediaries or we do. But they do kind of like this whole idea of making marketing accountable and marking metrics. If we move on to there, which decisions are these tools influencing? Well, the intermediaries feel that pricing has been very, very strongly influenced by these tools and by these articles. That managers really like the idea of channel management, and there was a strong B2B bias to some extent on this. And promotional management's really quite low, which is quite surprising given how much we care for it as academics. We could also look at the decisions and see, cross-classify, of the decisions that have had a lot of impact, so this is impact on this dimension, are they the important decisions? Are we putting our effort, which is where we're having impact, or where it would be most useful to managers, which is how they rank it as important? And ironically, perhaps again reflecting the B2B nature, although we did split it differently, you can see this sample felt there was something of an overemphasis on media and something of an underemphasis on Salesforce management. So it's kind of an interesting it's a very, very rich paper, and there's a huge amount of data which we're prepared to make available as to exactly what articles have affected what knowledge tools and have affected what decisions that managers make. I just want to finish up by talking about that's actual practice, state of the art, or state of the union. What about state of the art? What about best practice? So in a paper published in Marketing Science late last year, Gary Lillian, Venki Shankar and myself looked at, of the 25 finalists who have been in the Marketing Science Practice Prize, and I think VK is only half of those, then what are some of the things that we can learn from the accumulated knowledge of these 25 prize-winning papers? And I do encourage you to actually look at the Marketing Science Practice Prize, because as VK said, it's a great way to get a marketing science publication and to get your paper out there. The first competition I was a finalist in, it got me 2 marketing science papers, it got me an HBR paper, it got me $500,000 from Telstra, because I do charge my clients. I charge them $500,000 for the research. And so, yeah, what's not to like about this kind of work? One of the things that we did was we looked at all of the reading of the marketing science articles. Each finalist gets an article in marketing science. Each finalist also gets a TV video, which is up on the MITV website. And we interviewed all of the authors there to find out about these papers. So if you look at what we found, here's one typical article which VK's already spoken about, Kumar et al. 2013, the Hokey Pokey article. So we looked at what the article did, what the managerial application was, what the statistical approach was, and what the impact was with respect to financial, cultural, transportability, and methodological. And it's quite interesting if you cross-classify what the problem that the finalist was trying to address, response to new entry, positioning, forecasting, brand potential, promotion, and how was it used to address it. The thing that kind of amazed us is that this matrix is very full. In other words, we've had, quite accidentally, in this practice competition, we've had a remarkable diversity of managerial problems which have been looked at, and we've had a remarkable diversity of methodological tools by which those problems have been addressed. And again, if you're thinking of doing stuff on practice, not a bad idea to understand what some of the best practice has been done. We also then characterised these projects. We did a survey of the authors, and we characterised these projects on a whole host of dimensions. This project wouldn't have got off the ground without an advocate. We didn't exploit the value. CEO support was essential to try and find out what is it that leads to good academic industry liaison. We did a factor analysis of those factors, and basically there were 3 factors, which is, do we use this for either strategic decisions like improving profits, useful insights, as opposed to operational decisions, tactical stuff. The second dimension was, do we love analysis in this country? Do we highlight analytical approaches, for example? And the third thing is this in-house or is it out-of-house? And so we were able to plot these, and again you can see 4 different sorts of companies. You can see the sort of company where these are the companies that like doing it in-house, we're analytically advanced, and these are the companies that are using it, and these are the companies that are using it for strategic decisions. This is affecting strategic decisions as opposed to operational decisions. So these outsourcing people, they're using it for very strong strategic decisions, but they're sending it outside to do it. These people are using it for strategic decisions and doing it in-house, and so we call them strategically leveraged. These people are using it for day-to-day decisions, but they've got a very strong team inside the company. We're calling those operational analysts. And these people are neither advanced and just doing operational stuff, so we called those greenfields. I believe that we're in an applied profession. If we're going to be in an applied profession, I think that we've got to make sure that our applications are grounded in very, very strong tools and techniques and are focused on what's going to be useful to the decisions that managers make. And to do that, I think it's quite useful to have a systematic study of where we've done that well and probably where we haven't. So thank you very much.